cowboy married a 20-year-old virgin, and neither knew what to do on their first night. From sunup to sundown, Jacob tended to his horses and cattle, mending fences, feeding the animals, and riding across the open land that had been in his family for generations. Life was simple but demanding, and Jacob had grown used to it. He enjoyed the solitude, the rhythm of the seasons, and the sense of pride that came from taking care of the land and animals he loved. Yet despite his busy days, there was a quiet longing in his heart, a desire to find someone to share his life with, someone who could understand both the beauty and the hardships of his world. In the same town lived a young woman named Emily. She was 20 years old, with a gentle spirit and kind eyes that seemed to notice the smallest details in the world around her. Emily had grown up in a sheltered environment, protected by her loving family. She had spent most of her life studying, helping at home, and dreaming quietly of what the future might bring. Unlike Jacob, her life had been calm and predictable, filled with family dinners, church gatherings, and small-town events. She had never been in love, nor had she experienced the complexities of adult relationships. Her innocence and sincerity were part of what made her so beloved by those around her. The day Jacob and Emily first met was ordinary in many ways. Jacob was riding his horse near the town square when he noticed Emily struggling with a basket of groceries. She had dropped several items and her hands were full. Without thinking, Jacob guided his horse closer and offered to help. Emily looked up at him, surprised but grateful, and accepted his assistance. He helped her gather the fallen groceries, lifting heavier items with ease, and carried the basket to her home. That simple act of kindness sparked a friendship between them. Over the next few months, Jacob and Emily began seeing each other more often. Sometimes it was at the local market, sometimes during community events, and sometimes just in passing as Jacob rode his horse and Emily walked home from errands. They started talking, sharing small stories about their lives. Emily admired Jacob's dedication to his work and the way he cared for his animals, while Jacob appreciated Emily's warmth, her laughter, and the calm presence she brought wherever she went. As their friendship grew, so did a quiet attraction, though neither of them rushed it. Jacob was aware that Emily had little experience with the world beyond her family and the town, and he felt a deep sense of responsibility to treat her with respect and patience. Emily, in turn, was both curious and cautious. She had never been in love before, and the intensity of her feelings for Jacob was new and sometimes confusing. Yet there was comfort in his presence. He made her feel safe, valued, and understood in a way that no one else had. Over time, their connection deepened. They began spending more hours together, walking through the fields, talking under the stars, and sharing dreams for the future. Jacob would tell Emily about the challenges of ranch life, the unpredictability of weather, and the satisfaction of seeing a day's hard work pay off. Emily would share her thoughts on books she had read, stories from her family, and her hopes for a life filled with purpose and love. Each conversation strengthened their bond, creating a foundation built on mutual respect, understanding, and genuine affection. Eventually, Jacob realized that his feelings for Emily went beyond friendship. He admired her kindness, her thoughtfulness, and the way she could bring light into the most ordinary moments. Emily, too, began to recognize that her heart belonged to Jacob. She admired his strength, his dedication, and the quiet confidence he carried. There was an undeniable connection between them, a spark that neither could ignore. The idea of marriage slowly entered their minds. In their small town, relationships were often serious from the start. People believed in courtship that led to commitment, and both Jacob and Emily understood the value of finding a life partner who shared their values and vision. They began discussing the future in hushed, intimate conversations, exploring what it would mean to be married, to share a life built on trust, respect, and love. The decision to marry did not come lightly. Both Jacob and Emily were aware of the challenges that lay ahead. Marriage was a lifelong commitment, and they knew that it would require patience, understanding, and compromise. Yet, their love for each other was strong enough to outweigh their fears. They trusted that together they could face whatever came their way. When the day of the wedding arrived, the town gathered to celebrate. The church was decorated with flowers, and the townspeople smiled warmly at the young couple. Jacob looked handsome in his suit, his cowboy boots still visible beneath the trousers, a reminder of the life he would continue to lead. Emily looked radiant, her innocence and beauty shining through the simple elegance of her dress. As they exchanged vows, promising to care for and support each other, there was not just joy but also a sense of anticipation for the life they were about to begin together. Despite the celebration, both Jacob and Emily carried a quiet nervousness. They had shared their lives in many ways, but there were parts of life they had yet to explore: intimacy, closeness, and the deep connection that comes with marriage. Both were aware that their first night together would be unfamiliar, and though they were in love, uncertainty lingered. Yet, beneath the nerves was a shared hope that their love, built on trust and respect, would guide them through anything unknown. After the wedding, as they prepared to leave the church and begin their honeymoon, they held hands tightly, finding comfort in each other's touch. They were about to step into a new chapter, one filled with joy, challenges, and discovery. Neither knew exactly what to expect, but both were committed to facing it together. Their journey had only just begun, and the foundation they had built, the friendship, the respect, and the budding love, would guide them as they navigated the exciting and sometimes intimidating world of married life. As the sun set over the quiet town, casting golden light over the fields and hills, Jacob and Emily rode side by side, ready to face their future together. The night ahead was unknown, but they were not afraid. They had each other, and that was enough to give them courage. With hearts full of hope and minds open to learning, they entered the first chapter of a life that would be filled with love, growth, and the beautiful discovery of what it truly meant to be partners in life. Their story, simple yet profound, was a reminder that love often begins in small, ordinary moments: a helping hand, a kind word, or a shared dream. And as Jacob and Emily moved forward, they carried with them the promise of a partnership that would be tested, strengthened, and ultimately celebrated through every step of their journey together. After the excitement of the wedding had settled, Jacob and Emily returned to Jacob's home, a modest but warm ranch house surrounded by wide fields and grazing cattle. The air smelled faintly of hay and earth, a scent that Jacob found comforting and that Emily was beginning to appreciate. They carried their belongings inside, laughing quietly at the way they bumped into each other with suitcases and gift bags. The house, though familiar to Jacob, now felt different. It had changed because it was no longer just his home, it was theirs. Emily moved slowly through the rooms, taking in the simple furnishings and the wide windows that looked out onto the open land. She had never lived on a ranch before, and every corner seemed to tell a story. The kitchen smelled faintly of baked bread, left by Jacob's mother when she had helped him prepare for the wedding. The living room was cozy, with a stone fireplace and shelves filled with books and photographs. Emily could sense the life Jacob had built here, the work and love he had poured into his home. She felt both excitement and nervousness. This was her new life now, and she wanted to belong. Jacob, noticing her careful observation, smiled. He could tell she was trying to adjust, trying to understand the life she had just entered. "Don't worry," he said gently. "This is your home too now. We'll figure everything out together." Emily nodded, comforted by his words, though a quiet flutter of nerves remained. She was stepping into something entirely new, and while her heart was full of love, her mind was filled with questions she didn't dare speak aloud. As the evening approached, Jacob suggested they have dinner together. He had prepared a simple meal, knowing that after the wedding, Emily might not want anything too heavy or complicated. They sat at the small wooden table, sharing food and conversation. Emily found herself laughing more easily than she had expected. Jacob's easygoing nature, the warmth in his voice, and the gentle way he looked at her made her feel safe and cherished. After dinner, the couple moved to the living room. The room was quiet except for the soft crackle of the fireplace. They sat close to each other on the couch, hands brushing occasionally. Emily felt her nerves return as the realization of their first night together loomed over her. She had been sheltered, had never experienced romance or intimacy before, and now she was expected to navigate these feelings with a man she loved deeply, but still felt nervous around. Jacob sensed her tension and squeezed her hand gently. "Hey," he said softly, "we don't have to do anything we're not ready for." His words, simple yet sincere, eased some of her anxiety. She looked at him, seeing the same mixture of curiosity and nervousness reflected in his eyes. Jacob had always been confident in his work, in caring for the ranch, but when it came to romance, he too was stepping into the unknown. Neither of them had experience, and yet both wanted to honor the love they shared. They spent the next hour talking quietly about everything and nothing. They shared stories from their childhoods, talked about dreams for the future, and laughed over small, awkward memories. Emily realized that intimacy wasn't just about closeness of the body, it was about connection of the heart. And Jacob realized that patience and understanding could make even the most nervous moments tender and meaningful. Later, as the night grew darker and the stars began to appear outside the windows, they moved toward the bedroom. The room was softly lit, simple but warm. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she helped arrange the bed, and Jacob noticed her anxiety. He sat beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and whispered, "It's okay. We'll take it slow. Tonight is just about us being together." Emily nodded, feeling comforted by his gentle reassurance. For a long while, they simply sat together, talking and holding each other. Emily asked questions, innocent ones, curious ones, and Jacob answered as best as he could. They discussed their hopes, their fears, and what they wanted from each other, both in their relationship and in the life they were beginning together. There were moments of silence too, filled with the quiet sounds of the night and the occasional rustle of leaves outside the window. These silences were not awkward. They were moments of understanding, of realizing that sometimes being together meant simply being present. Jacob and Emily discovered that intimacy could be more than physical. It was laughter over shared memories. It was the comfort of holding hands. It was the quiet trust in knowing that neither of them would rush the other. Emily found courage in Jacob's patience, and Jacob found joy in Emily's openness and honesty. Their first night, which might have been tense or frightening, became instead a gentle exploration of connection, trust, and love. After some time, Emily rested her head on Jacob's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. She realized that love could be a teacher, guiding them through experiences neither of them had known before. Jacob, too, felt a sense of calm he had not expected. The nervousness had not disappeared, but it had transformed into something deeper, a shared understanding that they would face everything together. As the night grew late, they finally lay down side by side, holding each other close. There was no rush, no pressure, just a quiet presence of love and commitment. Emily felt a warmth she had never known before, a mix of safety, excitement, and curiosity. Jacob felt the same, a deep satisfaction in knowing that the woman he loved trusted him completely. In those moments, the foundation for a lifetime of partnership was quietly being built. By the time they drifted off to sleep, the fear of the unknown had lessened. They had discovered that love was patient, gentle, and forgiving. They had learned that marriage was not just about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about being present for each other, understanding one another's fears, and supporting each other through new experiences. The night had begun with nervousness, but it ended with a quiet sense of accomplishment and a deepening bond. The days following the wedding were filled with similar lessons. Jacob and Emily continued to navigate their new life together, discovering each other's habits, preferences, and dreams. They learned how to work as a team on the ranch, how to communicate effectively, and how to nurture the emotional and physical aspects of their relationship. Each day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to grow closer. Emily felt proud of herself for stepping into a life so different from the one she had known, and Jacob felt grateful for the gentle, loving presence Emily brought into his world. As the weeks passed, they realized that their first night together had set the tone for their marriage. It had taught them patience, honesty, and the value of emotional closeness. They learned that intimacy was not something to be rushed or feared. It was a journey to be taken together, one step at a time. Their relationship grew stronger because of it, rooted in trust, respect, and a deep love that neither had expected to find so completely. Through this experience, Emily learned that being inexperienced was not a weakness. It was simply the beginning of a shared journey. Jacob learned that being patient and understanding could create a bond stronger than he had imagined. Together, they discovered that love was more than feelings. It was action, care, and commitment, shown in small moments as well as big ones. Their life on the ranch became not just a series of routines, but a space where love, learning, and growth were always present. By the end of part 2, Jacob and Emily had begun to truly understand the meaning of partnership. Their first night, once a source of nervousness, had become a memory of trust, courage, and the gentle beginnings of a lifelong love. They were ready to face the challenges and joys of married life together, knowing that with patience, respect, and honesty, they could navigate anything that came their way. The days passed quietly, but for Jacob and Emily, each day brought small discoveries about each other and about themselves. The honeymoon phase had its charm, the flowers, the laughter, the simple joy of being together. But underneath it, both felt a growing awareness of the new realities of married life. It was more than living together. It was learning how to be partners in every sense of the word. Emily, with her gentle nature, was discovering that life on a ranch was not just beautiful but also demanding. Feeding the animals, helping with chores, and adjusting to a schedule so different from her own had its challenges. She found herself tired in ways she had never been before, but also exhilarated by the sense of purpose and teamwork. Jacob noticed her efforts and felt pride swelling in his chest. She had stepped into a life so different from her sheltered upbringing, and she had done so with grace and determination. He knew the first night had been just the beginning of a learning process for both of them. The physical closeness they had shared, gentle and patient, had been meaningful, but he also understood that emotional intimacy required continued effort. He watched her quietly as she moved around the ranch house, carrying out her new responsibilities with care. Her presence brought a warmth to his home that he hadn't realized was missing. Evenings became a special time for the couple. After a long day on the ranch, they would sit on the porch, sipping warm tea or cold lemonade, depending on the season, and talk about everything that had happened during the day. Emily loved hearing about Jacob's experiences, how he handled the unpredictable nature of ranch life, and how he solved problems no one else could. Jacob, in turn, enjoyed listening to Emily share her observations and reflections. She noticed things he had never mentioned, small details about the land, the animals, and the sky above them. Their conversations, rich with curiosity and respect, deepened their bond more than either had imagined. Yet beneath the comfort of these routines, a quiet tension lingered. Both Jacob and Emily were inexperienced when it came to the physical side of marriage. The first night had been gentle, filled with conversation, laughter, and tentative closeness. But as days went by, they realized that their lack of experience could create moments of awkwardness. Emily sometimes wondered if she was doing things correctly, while Jacob worried about meeting her expectations. Neither wanted to make the other uncomfortable, and both were determined not to rush anything. This mutual care, however, sometimes made them hesitant, creating a delicate balance between desire and caution. One evening, after a long day of tending to the animals and fixing fences, Jacob and Emily sat quietly in their bedroom. The room smelled faintly of lavender and wood polish. They had spent the day working side by side, laughing and helping each other, but now a different kind of nervousness settled over them. Emily bit her lip and glanced at Jacob, unsure how to begin a conversation she had been thinking about all day. Jacob noticed her hesitation and reached for her hand. "Hey," he said softly, "whatever you're feeling, it's okay. We can take our time, there's no rush." Emily smiled faintly, feeling a mix of relief and lingering uncertainty. She realized that their intimacy was about trust as much as it was about closeness. The thought that they could talk openly, that Jacob would listen without judgment, made her feel safe. Slowly, she began to express her thoughts, asking questions about what he wanted, what he enjoyed, and how they could make each other comfortable. Jacob responded with patience, explaining his feelings honestly and reassuring her that learning together was part of the process. Over the next few weeks, their relationship continued to grow, not just in understanding but also in tenderness. They explored the small moments of physical closeness, holding hands, hugging, and gentle touches, learning how to communicate through gestures as much as words. Each day was a lesson in patience, empathy, and the joy of discovering each other in ways neither had expected. Emily learned to trust her instincts, and Jacob learned the importance of paying attention to the unspoken signals that spoke volumes about her comfort and happiness. Outside the ranch, life in the town continued as usual. Neighbors greeted them warmly, curious about the newly married couple. Jacob and Emily navigated these interactions with quiet confidence, though sometimes Emily felt self-conscious about her inexperience compared to other young women who seemed more familiar with adult relationships. Jacob noticed her occasional hesitation and reminded her that there was no right or wrong way to approach love and intimacy. "We're writing our own story," he said, smiling. "No one else's experiences matter here." One afternoon, while walking through the fields together, Emily paused to watch a group of foals playing nearby. Jacob stood beside her, feeling the warmth of her hand in his. The sun shone brightly, casting golden light over the grass and hills. In that moment, Emily realized how much she had grown in just a few weeks. She had faced fears, tried new things, and begun to understand the rhythm of life on the ranch. And more importantly, she had learned that intimacy and love were not about rushing or comparing themselves to others. They were about patience, trust, and sharing life together. Jacob, too, felt a sense of awe at the transformation happening within their relationship. He had always known that Emily was special, but he hadn't realized how much courage and heart she had until she faced these new experiences with an open mind. Their journey together was not without challenges, but it was filled with small victories and tender moments that neither would ever forget. Night times remained a space of discovery. Some nights were quiet, filled with conversation and laughter. Other nights, they would simply lie together in each other's arms, sharing warmth and comfort without words. Slowly, Emily grew more confident in expressing her desires and needs, and Jacob became more attuned to her responses, understanding that love was an ongoing process of learning, adjusting, and supporting each other. The bedroom became less a place of anxiety and more a place of connection, a private world where they could explore the depths of trust and care. One evening, after a particularly long day repairing fences and tending to the horses, Emily and Jacob sat together on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Emily leaned against Jacob's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. She realized that love could be quiet, powerful and transformative. It wasn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It was about being present for each other, sharing fears and joys, and building a life together from small, meaningful actions. Jacob looked at Emily, seeing the soft glow of the sunset reflected in her eyes. He realized that their first night, once a source of nervousness, had been the first step in a journey that was far more beautiful than either of them had imagined. Each challenge, each small moment of uncertainty, had brought them closer, teaching patience, empathy, and the value of emotional closeness. He understood now that intimacy was more than a single night. It was a lifelong process of giving, learning, and cherishing each other. As the weeks turned into months, Jacob and Emily began to settle into a comfortable rhythm. Life on the ranch demanded effort and resilience, but it also offered moments of joy, laughter, and quiet reflection. They celebrated small achievements. The first time Emily successfully rode one of the horses alone, Jacob's pride in the harvest, and even simple meals shared after a hard day's work. Each moment reinforced their bond, showing that marriage was not just about love in words, but love in action. Their relationship continued to evolve, growing stronger with each passing day. Emily learned that confidence came with experience, and Jacob learned that gentleness and understanding were more powerful than strength alone. Together, they navigated the delicate balance between curiosity, patience, and affection, discovering that love was a journey to be embraced, not a destination to be rushed. By the end of part 3, Jacob and Emily had learned that intimacy was not just physical closeness, but emotional connection, trust, and the ability to face new experiences together. Their first night had set the foundation, but it was the weeks and months afterward that truly shaped their relationship. Each day was a lesson in patience, respect, and understanding, a journey they were willing to take side by side. The quiet nights, the shared chores, the conversations by the fire, and the moments of laughter had all become part of their story. And though neither knew exactly what the future held, they were confident in one thing. Together, they could navigate any challenge, embrace any joy, and build a life filled with love, trust, and shared discovery. Life on the ranch had become a rhythm, but with rhythm came challenges, and Jacob and Emily were learning that love required more than just affection and kindness. The early days of marriage had been full of gentle discovery, quiet laughter, and small victories. But now, the realities of daily life began to test their patience and understanding. Emily was learning that ranch life was physically demanding, and Jacob was learning that even with the best intentions, he could sometimes be unaware of how exhausting it could be for someone new to this world. One morning, Jacob had to leave early to check on the cattle in the distant pastures. Emily stayed behind to care for the smaller chores around the house. At first, she felt confident, remembering the tasks Jacob had shown her. She fed the chickens, swept the barn, and organized the kitchen, thinking she had everything under control. But as the morning passed, she realized that there was more to managing the home than she had anticipated. The chores seemed endless, and her body ached in ways it never had before. By the time Jacob returned, Emily was tired and frustrated, feeling as if she had fallen short despite her best efforts. Jacob noticed her exhaustion immediately. He pulled her aside gently and took her hands in his. "You're doing so much, Emily," he said. "It's okay to take a break. You're learning, and it's normal to feel tired at first. We'll figure this out together." Emily's eyes welled up slightly. She had wanted to prove that she could handle life on the ranch, that she could be a true partner in every way. But now, she realized that part of being a partner was allowing herself to accept help. Jacob's kindness reminded her that love was not about perfection. It was about effort, support, and understanding. Over the next few weeks, they began to find a balance between responsibilities and rest. Jacob taught Emily to prioritize tasks, showing her how to handle the most important chores efficiently, while leaving room for moments of relaxation. Emily, in turn, began to communicate more openly about her limits, her feelings, and her desire to do her best without exhausting herself. These conversations, sometimes awkward and sometimes heartfelt, brought them closer. They realized that partnership meant not only working side by side, but also understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses. Evenings became a cherished time for them, a chance to reconnect after long, tiring days. They would sit together by the fireplace or on the porch, sharing stories, laughing at small mistakes, and simply enjoying the quiet comfort of each other's company. Sometimes, Emily would ask questions about ranch life, curious about how Jacob had learned to handle the animals, the weather, and the unpredictable challenges of the land. Jacob loved explaining things to her, and he admired her curiosity and willingness to learn. Yet, as they grew more comfortable with the routines of married life, new challenges emerged. The first night of intimacy had been gentle and patient, but as weeks passed, Emily sometimes felt uncertainty about her role as a wife and partner. She worried about whether she was meeting Jacob's expectations, whether she understood what he wanted, and whether she was growing fast enough in her new life. Jacob, noticing her occasional hesitation, realized that experience could not be rushed. Love and intimacy required ongoing communication, patience, and respect. One evening, after a particularly long day, Emily confided in Jacob. "I sometimes feel like I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted quietly. "I want to make you happy, but I worry I'm not enough." Jacob held her close, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Emily," he said gently, "you are more than enough. We're learning together, that's what matters. There's no guidebook for this. All we need is honesty, patience, and love, and we already have those." Emily's heart softened. She realized that vulnerability was not weakness, it was part of trust. By sharing her fears, she allowed Jacob to reassure her, and together they grew stronger. As the months continued, their emotional connection deepened alongside their practical understanding of ranch life. Emily became more confident in handling daily chores and even started assisting Jacob with some of the more difficult tasks, like herding cattle or repairing fences. Jacob, in turn, learned to slow down when needed, to be patient, and to celebrate even the smallest achievements Emily accomplished. They discovered that partnership was not about equality in strength or experience, but about mutual support, encouragement, and the willingness to grow together. Social life in the town also presented subtle challenges. Friends and neighbors were curious about the young couple, sometimes offering advice that was well-meaning but not always helpful. Emily occasionally felt self-conscious, comparing herself to other women who seemed more experienced or confident. Jacob noticed her unease and gently reminded her that no one else's experience mattered in their marriage. "We're writing our own story," he told her. "Every couple learns differently. What matters is what we learn together." Emily smiled, comforted by his words, realizing that their relationship was unique, and that was its strength. One Saturday, Jacob decided to take Emily on a short ride across the hills, showing her the parts of the land she had not yet explored. They rode slowly, enjoying the breeze and the sound of hooves against the earth. Emily felt a sense of freedom and adventure she had never known. She realized that love was not just about quiet evenings or shared chores. It was also about experiencing life together, facing challenges side by side, and creating memories that belonged only to them. Jacob felt the same way, noticing the joy in her eyes and the laughter that came naturally when she was with him. The journey of learning about intimacy continued alongside these adventures. Nights were spent exploring comfort, closeness, and emotional connection. Emily began to feel more confident in expressing her desires, understanding that communication was the key to mutual happiness. Jacob, patient and attentive, learned that love was not measured by expertise or performance, but by the willingness to listen, to adapt, and to honor each other's boundaries. They celebrated small successes, laughed through awkward moments, and cherished the growth they were experiencing together. By this point, both Jacob and Emily had begun to understand that marriage was a constant journey of learning and adapting. It was not a static state of perfection, but a dynamic process filled with moments of joy, struggle, and discovery. They realized that patience, empathy, and respect were as important as love itself. Every challenge they faced, whether physical, emotional, or social, was an opportunity to strengthen their partnership, to deepen their understanding, and to reaffirm their commitment to each other. Emily found that her confidence grew not only in the practical aspects of life on the ranch, but also in her emotional strength. She learned to trust herself, to communicate openly, and to embrace the unknown with curiosity rather than fear. Jacob, too, experienced growth, learning that strength was not just about physical ability or experience, but about empathy, understanding, and patience. Together, they were discovering that marriage was not just a bond between two people. It was a shared journey of growth, learning, and love that required effort, courage, and dedication every day. As months passed, their routines became more harmonious. The small misunderstandings and challenges that had once caused tension now became opportunities for laughter, learning, and deeper connection. They discovered that every shared meal, every evening by the fire, and every conversation under the stars was a chance to strengthen their bond. The quiet nights that once brought anxiety were now moments of comfort, reflection, and intimacy, where love was expressed through touch, words, and presence. By the end of Part 4, Jacob and Emily had grown closer than ever. They had faced challenges that tested their patience, understanding, and resilience. Yet each challenge had brought them deeper trust, respect, and affection. They had learned that marriage was not just about grand gestures or perfect nights. It was about navigating life together, supporting each other through uncertainty, and celebrating small victories along the way. Their relationship had evolved from nervous curiosity to a deep, abiding partnership built on love, patience, and shared growth. In their quiet moments, sitting together on the porch or lying side by side at night, Jacob and Emily reflected on how far they had come. They realized that the journey was ongoing, that there would always be new experiences, challenges, and lessons ahead. But they were ready, because they had learned to face life together with honesty, courage, and a commitment to nurturing their love. They understood that marriage was not a destination, but a journey, one they were eager to continue walking side by side, heart to heart, every step of the way. The seasons changed, and with them, Jacob and Emily grew even closer. The first year of their marriage had been full of lessons, some gentle, some challenging, but every experience had brought them together. What had once been nervousness and uncertainty had transformed into confidence, trust, and a deep understanding of each other. The quiet mornings on the porch, the long days tending to animals, and the shared laughter over small mishaps had all become part of the fabric of their life. Their love, once tender and tentative, had grown stronger, more resilient, and richer with every passing day. Emily reflected often on how much she had changed. She had stepped into a world that was unfamiliar, demanding, and sometimes overwhelming, yet she had embraced it with courage and curiosity. She had learned to ride horses, care for animals, help with chores, and manage the many tasks that came with life on the ranch. Beyond the practical skills, she had also learned something far more important: how to communicate openly, express her feelings, and trust in a partnership built on mutual respect and love. Jacob, too, had grown in ways he had never anticipated. He had always been strong, capable, and independent, but Emily had taught him patience, empathy, and the power of gentle guidance. He had learned that intimacy was not measured by experience or perfection, but by attentiveness, care, and the willingness to grow together. Every evening spent talking with Emily, every quiet laugh shared, and every moment of physical and emotional closeness had deepened his love and respect for her. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low over the hills, Jacob and Emily decided to take a walk through the fields. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, and the breeze carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. They walked hand in hand, feeling the comfort of each other's presence, knowing that their journey together had brought them to a place of understanding and harmony. Emily leaned her head on Jacob's shoulder, smiling softly. "Do you remember our first night?" she asked. Jacob chuckled quietly. "How could I forget? We were both so nervous, unsure of what to do, yet somehow it felt right just being together." Emily nodded, her eyes shining with warmth. "It's amazing how far we've come. I was so scared back then, but now I feel like we can face anything together." Jacob squeezed her hand. "We have learned so much, haven't we? Not just about each other, but about ourselves and what it means to be a team. Marriage is more than just love. It's trust, patience, and commitment, and we have all of that." Their conversation reminded them of how much they had grown since the early days. The nervous glances, shy laughter, and tentative touches of the first night had evolved into deep intimacy, rooted in respect and understanding. They had learned that love was a living thing, something to nurture, protect, and celebrate every day. Back at the ranch, they continued their routines but with a newfound ease. Mornings were spent caring for the animals, tending to the fields, and completing chores together. Their teamwork had become seamless, Emily anticipating Jacob's needs, and Jacob providing guidance without taking over. Even the challenges that had once caused frustration now brought moments of laughter and learning. A broken fence, a mischievous horse, or a surprise storm became opportunities to work together, solve problems, and celebrate small victories. Evenings remained a special time for reflection and connection. They would sit together by the fireplace, sharing stories, dreams, and plans for the future. Sometimes, they would reminisce about the awkwardness of their early days, laughing at the nervousness they had once felt. Other times, they would talk seriously about their goals, the life they wanted to build, and the ways they could continue to grow together. These conversations strengthened their emotional bond and reinforced their sense of partnership. Intimacy had also grown naturally over time. The shy, hesitant touches of their first night had developed into a rhythm of closeness, comfort, and mutual understanding. Emily had grown confident in expressing her feelings and desires, and Jacob had learned to respond with patience, attentiveness, and care. Their physical connection was now a reflection of the deep emotional bond they had cultivated, one built on trust, love, and the joy of being together. One evening, as they lay together beneath the soft glow of the lantern, Emily turned to Jacob and whispered, "I never imagined love could feel like this. It's more than I ever dreamed of, and I'm so glad we have each other." Jacob smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I feel the same way. We started with so many unknowns, yet here we are, stronger, closer, and happier than I ever thought possible. We've built something beautiful together, and it will only grow from here." Their journey was not without challenges, but each difficulty had been met with communication, patience, and care. They had learned that disagreements were not signs of failure, but opportunities to understand each other better. They discovered that compromise was a tool for building harmony, and that forgiveness and empathy could resolve conflicts more effectively than pride or stubbornness ever could. Every argument, every moment of doubt, and every fear had been transformed into a lesson, strengthening the foundation of their marriage. Over time, the townspeople began to notice the change in the young couple. Where there had once been nervousness and uncertainty, there was now a calm confidence, a visible bond that radiated warmth and trust. Friends admired the way Jacob and Emily worked together, supported each other, and navigated the complexities of life with patience and care. Their relationship became an example of partnership, showing that love was not just a feeling but a practice, something cultivated through effort, understanding, and shared growth. Spring arrived, bringing with it new life and fresh beginnings. The fields turned green, flowers bloomed, and the animals thrived under the care of their attentive owners. Emily and Jacob spent their days in the sun, working together, laughing and enjoying the beauty of their surroundings. They took pride in the life they had built, a life rooted in love, respect, and the willingness to learn and grow together. Each season brought new lessons, new joys, and new opportunities to strengthen their bond. One sunny afternoon, Emily and Jacob sat under a large oak tree, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. They held hands, feeling the warmth and security of their connection. "We've come a long way," Emily said softly, a thoughtful smile on her face. Jacob nodded, gazing at her with affection. "We have, and I think the best part is knowing that no matter what comes next, we'll face it together. That's what makes us strong, our love, our trust, and the way we care for each other every single day." Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. She realized that marriage was not a destination, but a journey filled with learning, patience, and growth. The nervousness of their first night, the uncertainty of their early days, and the challenges they had faced were all part of the path that had led them to this deep, abiding connection. Jacob and Emily continued to explore the beauty of life together. They rode horses across the hills, tended to the animals, planted flowers, and shared quiet meals under the stars. They celebrated small victories, comforted each other in moments of fatigue or frustration, and nurtured a love that was both gentle and resilient. They had learned that the heart of marriage was not in perfection, but in presence, being there for each other, listening, supporting, and loving through every season. By the end of the first year, they had a deeper appreciation for what they had built together. Their first night, once filled with nervousness and uncertainty, had become a cherished memory, a gentle reminder of how far they had come. They had grown in understanding, patience, and emotional connection, creating a life filled with warmth, trust, and mutual respect. Jacob often reflected on how lucky he was to have Emily by his side. She had brought light, joy, and love into his life, teaching him lessons he could never have learned alone. Emily, too, felt grateful for Jacob's patience, guidance, and unwavering support. Together, they had created a home filled with laughter, understanding, and affection, a place where both of them could grow and thrive. As the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold, Jacob and Emily sat together on the porch, holding hands and reflecting on their journey. They realized that marriage was not always easy, but it was always worth it. They had faced uncertainty, inexperience, and challenges, yet their love had grown stronger, deeper, and more resilient with each passing day. They understood now that true love was not measured by grand gestures or perfect moments, but by the small, consistent acts of care, patience, and understanding that built a life together. Every conversation, every shared chore, every gentle touch had strengthened their bond and reminded them that they were partners in every sense of the word. With hearts full of gratitude and eyes filled with hope, Jacob and Emily looked toward the future. They knew there would be more challenges, more lessons, and more opportunities to grow, but they were ready. Together, they could face anything, celebrate everything, and continue building a life filled with love, trust, and joy. Their journey, which had begun with nervousness and uncertainty, had blossomed into a beautiful partnership, one rooted in respect, understanding, and the simple, enduring power of being together. And so, as the stars appeared in the night sky above their ranch, Jacob and Emily held each other close, feeling the steady rhythm of their hearts and the unspoken promise of a lifetime of love, growth, and shared discovery. They had learned that the true essence of marriage was not perfection but presence, and in that presence, They had found everything they had ever hoped for, and more.